Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for coming to class 3 of Foundation Course 5, which is how karma works. So before we get started, just take a moment to make clear in your mind your motivation for being in this course and for being here today. Make it as clear as you can. Make it as big as you can, as high as you can. Sashi Puki Jukshin Metotram Rira Blingshin Yende Kempadi Sangye Shindu Mikte Owargi Drokun Namdak Shingla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayami. Sangye Chiran Suki Chuknam La Changchu Partu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Chushe Ki Pesanam Ki Jola Penshir Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Daki Chishe Ki Pesanam Ki Chola Penshir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chidan Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kapsu Chi Daki Chishe Ki Pesana Ki Jola Penshir Sangye Druparsho. So before we get started on class 3, does anyone have questions from the previous classes? Oh, great. Thank you, Jessica. If you're comfortable speaking, you can unmute and ask, or you can type it, whatever works best for you. What is the application for real life for the two kinds of karma, according to Abhidharma? So, the Nampa and the Nampa Mayimpa, the communicating and the non-communicating kinds of karma. This is just an Abhidharma idea. But that said, like for myself personally, whether or not it's communicating to anybody else, the idea of when I take vows, it's like there's this cloak of protection that I get. And I do feel the vows as protection. They are like the most direct and personal guidance that I receive from a being who is completely and totally enlightened, who lived millennia before me, that they are my protection. When he sat under the Bodhi tree, Shakyamuni Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and became enlightened. It took a while, but then he did teach. And because karma and the consequences of what we do, what we think, what we say, what we physically do, are very hidden to us. We cannot see them. In a way, well, they're equally important, the two sides, both what to do and what not to do, as well as his teachings on that nothing has any nature from its own side. But at least that second one, emptiness, selflessness, in this school, it's hidden, but it's not as hidden as the consequences of our actions. And so those teachings in particular seem to me to be of great importance. And so this idea that I get a cloak when I take vows is, I can think of myself wearing these cloaks because I've taken many different sets. That I have these cloaks, and I think about these cloaks and what vows are related to each cloak as my protection. So you can think of it like that. Um, if you want to. um, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what an Abhidharmist would say about how they would use this idea in their lives. Um, maybe if we can find one, we could ask. I think it's an interesting question. Thank you. So we have another question. Does Nampa Rinpoche form only with a powerful karma or just a small karma? My understanding is that the communicating form relates only to a very powerful karma. I know that when Geshe Michael taught this, he said he would check, but I haven't yet seen he uh, where he gave the answer of his investigation. But I think it has to do um, with something very powerful like taking vows. Sure. So we did talk about a lot of things last time. Um, most importantly, being how the fourth chapter opens up, right? That it is deeds or karma that cause the multitude of worlds. And the basic meaning of karma, which is movement of the mind and what that inspires. So, we are constantly creating karma, constantly. Uh, we talked about communicating and non-communicating karma. And I covered the things that I missed in the first class, the 8 chapters and how they relate to each other, and the 4 aspects of a Buddhist book. So we're going to move on, and we're going to start digging a little deeper into karma. Sorry, I need to get my Tibetan document up. So there we go. And the chat, just in case. Okay, there we go. All right. So um, today we're going to dig into virtue and non-virtue. The word in Tibetan for virtue is gewa. So say gewa, gewa. So this is virtue or good deed, positive action. And we're going to, this long line here is the definition of virtue or good deed. And this definition comes from Chim Jampe Young, who was a Sakya scholar from the 13th century in Tibet. And Geshe Michael is quite, holds him in very high regard. He wrote an excellent commentary on the Abhidharmakosha. So the definition of virtue. It's de reishi le kinamen yiduongwa nyongwa tang ten duduknya le kyokpa yangde tokche nigewa yin. And we'll go through these, this long definition bit by bit. So let's start with du reshik. Say du reshik. Du reshik. And this means in the short term. In the short term. So like, yeah, short term. Does everyone understand short term? Is that a common phrase in other languages? It's as opposed to like in over long periods of time. So in the short term. Namin, this is a word that, well, especially if you've been going to the Shuangsang's Tower translation course, you'll have heard this word many, 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 many times. Namin. It means to cook something. Oh, I forgot to put the Sanskrit word, which is difficult for me to say. Vipachyate. You'll often hear teachers, you know, they'll share some idea, and it may be a very profound idea, and then there'll be questions related to it, and they'll respond by saying, "Oh, you need to go meditate on that," you know, or "You need to take that to the debate ground," or "You need to cook that," which means we need to spend time with it, thinking about it, contemplating it, meditating on it, talking with our Dharma friends about it. We need to cook it. So that's what this word is it's cooking to, we want to cook this. We're talking about karma, right? We want to cook this seed so that it then ripens. So then we can eat it. So min means ripe, and min pa means like a fruit. So this is it's the karmic seed is at a state where it's just about ready to open up into an experience. Yi duongwa. Say yi du ongwa. Yi duongwa. And this means desirable or attractive. Yi is mind, and ongwa means to come. So literally, it comes to mind. And what this means is that it pleases our mind. It is attractive to us. It comes to our mind. Dewa, and this is as opposed to gewa, right? Gewa is virtue with this spelling, and dewa sounds very similar, looks very similar. Dewa, that means pleasure, happiness, physical or mental pleasure. Nyongwa, say nyongwa. Nyongwa. Nyongwa means to experience. So to experience pleasure, to experience happiness. So there are two basic kinds of pleasure. There's, in the Abhidharma, there's Sorwa Dewa, which is physical pleasure, and Yi Dewa. There's that word Yi again, which means mind. So mental pleasure, mental happiness. So the first, and dang means and. So the first part of our definition is about experiencing happiness it brings an experience of happiness when it ripens. In the short term, dureshik. That's pretty cool. Then the second part, tendu, that means ultimately. So as opposed to the short term, we've got in the long term, ultimately, duk ngao. Say duk ngao. Challenging word to pronounce. It's dukkha in Sanskrit. And that means suffering. And this can refer to physical or mental suffering. Lei here means from. Kyopa, say kyopa. That means to protect. Nyangde. Nyangde. This is the Tibetan word for nirvana. And it means to pass beyond. To go beyond all sorrow. Topje. Say topje. That means it brings you. And yin is. So altogether, definitely a homework question. In plain English, a good deed is something which, in the short term, brings you a pleasant experience that is a desirable karmic result, and which ultimately protects you from suffering by bringing you to nirvana. That's what virtue is. That's what a good deed is. So where, with our Abhidharma hat on, the ultimate goal is nirvana, right? If you have your middle way hat on, any one of the middle way hats on, your highest goal is complete and total enlightenment. So while you're in this class, it's good to remember that we've got our Abhidharma hat on. But sometimes you can let thoughts sneak in from your middle way hat. If you are a follower of the middle way, you can think of this Nyangde as not just bringing you freedom from suffering, but that good deeds also ultimately will bring you to complete and total enlightenment. So you can let that sneak in. But when they ask you a question on the homework, be sure to answer with the Abhidharma hat. Geshe Michael talked about these in this class. He talked about these three types of results. But given that it always seems to take me longer to teach a class than it does him, and since this topic is covered in our next class, I'm going to leave this aside for now. And if we have time, I'll come back to it. But it's just this particular chapter, well, the whole Abhidharma Kosha is sets of lists. So in this chapter, chapter 4, we're presented with so many different lists that are talking about the aspects of karma in different ways. And this particular list here are the three kinds of karmic results. When does karma ripen? But we'll talk about that maybe later. Definitely next time, next class. So, question here: if a seed ripens in the short term for a pleasant result, how can I have an effect in the long term? Because when it ripens, it comes to an end, and it's hard for me to imagine it. That's a really good question. We are going to talk later on in this class about motivation. And dedication. So, what ideas we have in mind as our motivation for doing anything, any thought, any speech, any action. We can be as we can be as specific as we want. We can have the motivation in doing something like attending a class, for example. We can have the motivation to call it, we can be really we can have an expansive motivation. We can have the motivation that made my attendance in this class, the reason I'm here is so that I can create a future experience of having everything I need to practice the Dharma. Whether it be sustenance for this particular bag of bones, whether it be clothing to keep me, to keep others from freaking out at this body, but to have a home to live in, protected from the elements and animals, to have access to go to Dharma teachings, wherever they may be. You can and why do I want these teachings? So that I can clearly understand them and bring them into my heart and live them in my life so that I can benefit every person I come into contact with. Those I haven't yet. I mean, you can go on and on and on and be as detailed as you want. And when you do this in your motivation and in your dedication, those two parts, and we're going to talk about that later, a full karmic path, that comes in a later class. But these are like the motivation and the dedication they provide incredible power and potency to our actions. And since it's we who create our future experience, we can define that how we wish. What is it that we want? So if you want a pleasant short-term result and the highest possible long-term result, then you create that in your motivation and when you dedicate like that. That's one possible way. We are going to talk about some actions that by their very nature, and remember, we're talking Abhidharma school, by their very nature, good deeds. But my guess is middle way would agree as well. But we'll get there. So we want to be clear in our motivation of whether the results that will come to us from the ripening of the seeds we plant by everything that we do or think or say, that we make that motivation with as much, that we be purposeful when we're making that motivation before we do anything. And when we dedicate, not just blah, blah, the words, but really, really think about, really direct the energy of our experience, our movement of the mind and what it inspires. Okay. We can't, Buddhism is not like a sleepwalking kind of practice, right? I don't know, when I was growing up, I live in a country where most of the people around me went to either Sunday school, so Christian faith, or we had some people who are practicing Jewish faith around us, and they would go to Saturday school. And so you'd go to church once a week, and you would be a good person, especially once a week. And then the rest of the time, you just, play and goof off and be a little rascal if you were. And no, not with Buddhism. There's no like one special day where you practice this religion and then the rest of the time you can goof off. Now we have to be mindful, or have to be. We don't have to be anything. We, especially through this course, we come to understand that if we're just goofing off all the time, what's going to happen? What will that action bring us? We become aware. And, oh, do I want that kind of result? Do I want to have that kind of experience of people picking on me or being involved with mindless things, being dulled into a stupor of politics or whatever? Like, if you don't, then pay attention, be mindful of what's going on, and direct your future experience. That's basically what we're here to do right now, is to direct our future experience, so that time gap between now and future, basically we're reducing that time gap. An enlightened being, they don't even have to think about anything. They have such a collection of virtue that it's just spontaneous, that everything that they think and do and say is the highest virtue. And they see results immediately. For us, it takes longer. We're just getting started at this. You could call it like a construction company. That, I'm in the construction company. I construct my future experience. So now let's talk about, we talked about virtue. Now let's talk about non-virtue. And this word here in Tibetan, mi, it has different meanings, but mainly, most of the time, when you see this word, it means a negative, like we talked about with the non-communicating form of karma. It just had a mayimpa stuck at the end. So mi gyewa, yin, non-virtue is, what is non-virtue? Non-virtue is namen yidu miyongwa, mi dewa nyongwa. So namen we had, that's ripening, right? We had yi duongwa, and now it's yi du miyongwa. So that's an unpleasant, means unpleasant. Mi dewa, we had dewa before, now it's mi dewa. So this is physical or mental unhappiness or dissatisfaction. Myungwa. Oh, that's the same. That means to experience, right? So what is a non-virtue? It is that deed which brings you a karmic result which is unpleasant. That is suffering, unhappiness. Could be pain, any sort of dissatisfaction. So we don't talk about terms of time related to non-virtues because they bring us suffering. We will talk more later about, how things ripen more quickly, how certain seeds will ripen more quickly than others. We're also going to talk about in the laws of karma, the longer a seed hangs around or stays in the state of being a potential and not yet ripened, not yet ready to ripen, excuse me, it's growing in power. So some small thing you do, like let's say there's a fly buzzing around the room and it lands on your face and you brush it off. You scare it away from you. And you do it without thinking much, right? It's just a little act. But it plants a seed. And the longer that seed stays being a potential and not yet ripened, the more powerful it grows. And it could grow into an experience that would be very painful or very frightening for you. So for negative seeds, it's like we'd like them to ripen as quickly as possible because then they're as weak as they can be. And then the positive seeds, it'd be nice if they hung around for as long as possible so that they continue to grow in strength and potency and results. Anyway, Geshe Michael didn't talk about that here, but for some reason, I did. Someone must have needed that right now. Anyway, okay. So these definitions are really helpful, right? Virtue and non-virtue, they're not like heavily laden with judgment. They're just simple facts. When you do a good deed, when you do a virtue, you'll have a pleasant result in the future. When you do a negative deed, a non-virtue, you'll have some sort of suffering or pain in the future. That's all. And it's very helpful. And as someone who grew up in a culture that puts a lot of particularly praise in being a good person and shame in being someone who does negative things, it's very refreshing it's like to be very just scientific about it. These kind of actions bring these kind of future experiences. That's all. What exactly we're going to experience is, as I was talking about a little earlier, is what they call Shinto culture. I just love this phrase. It just sounds, I love how it sounds to my ear. Shinto culture. And it means very hidden, very hidden. The relationship between a particular action and the particular result it will bring is not just hidden to us the way that selflessness is, but it's very hidden. We normal people, and even only a Buddha can see what a particular action, what result, specific result, a particular action is going to bring. And we do have some writings from teachings that he gave that give us these correlations between action and results. And we've published a couple of books so far on that. In particular, if you can get it in your country, all the kinds of karma is very helpful in giving a list of particular actions and specific results you can expect. But because karma is Shinto culture, this we have to develop faith that the Buddha described it accurately, and we have to take on faith what he wrote about karma, about actions and their consequences, about what to take up and what to give up, about all of how karma works. We will, as we continue, as we put these teachings into practice, we can notice some results. We can notice that things change for us. For me, as an example, I was not a happy person at all before I started practicing these teachings or being introduced to these teachings. I was a depressed person clinically, and also I was very, very quick to anger with other people. So I was not a pleasant person to be around, most especially for myself. I did not like my life, being in my life. And things have changed for me, thank goodness, where I don't know about for other people. I can only speak for myself, but I'm much more comfortable in my skin in this bag of bones. So I'm less concerned about me. I'm much happier. My thoughts are much lighter. I'm not so quick to anger. There's things that you notice over time as you practice that, can I say, oh, this particular thing I did in 1997, because I did it with such focus, it ripened into some pleasant experience now. I cannot say that. I cannot see that. I am not an enlightened being. I do not know. But I have some inkling that, what changed between the earlier half of my life and now the later half of my life is that I'm practicing these teachings. There is one kind of a proof. It's not really a proof, but kind of a proof that we can do, which is that our cultures have some kind of strange ideas that if we lie, for example, if we avoid sharing something negative about ourselves, or we pad or expand on the truth of our own history or whatever, like if we, let's say that we're attracted to some person and we want to have a relationship with them, then we sort of put ourselves forward. We present ourselves as being more together than we are, smarter than we may be, or more beautiful than we may be. We may wear certain, these things, and put our hair color in our hair, and we may present ourselves in the most attractive way possible than we are, and we think that that's how we find a partner, is by doing these things. But if we check and see, does that always work? Does that have a 100% success rate by wearing a padded bra and coloring my hair blonde? Does that mean that I will find my perfect partner? Yeah, no. No, it doesn't. So we know that doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. And we have on authority from an enlightened being what does work. Serving people who are lonely is the cause for creating companionship. Then we could say, okay, I'll give that a try. See what results come. So there's one other kind of karma that we have a definition for. And that is lungmaten, which means neutral karma. So the whole definition is yi duong miong kepa de ni le shenpe le ni ge mi ge le shenpa nungmaten yin. So yi duong we had before, and that was a desirable result, right? Miong we had before, or this is an abbreviation of what we had before, is an undesirable result. So yi duong miong, not desirable and desirable results. Kyepa, let's see this spelling here. Kyepa, that means here gives you or gives. Deni, these two. Which two? Pleasurable and unpleasurable. Le Shempa. Le Shempa means other than, this lay here. We have two lays. Lay. This lay means is a comparative than, this rather than that, other than, and then this lay means karma. Then we have ge, mige, and we've had those above. Ge is virtue, and mige is non-virtue, karma. And then again, we have le shempa, other than. And then lung maten means neutral. And that's an abbreviation of lung du matempa, which, just so you know, it means not clarified by the Buddha. So does it mean that everything that wasn't clarified by the Buddha is a neutral karma? No. So it's just acknowledging the fact that there are like basically countless kinds of deeds, countless actions of body, speech, and mind that we can do. And the Buddha did not teach about each one of them. He focused on those actions that bring positive results, the ones that will bring us to enlightenment or nirvana, and negative deeds, non-virtues, the ones that keep us stuck in samsara. That's where he focused his attention. That's what we need to know. We don't need to know so much about, what is the result of me picking up a cloth and moving it 1 inch to the right, without thinking much about it. I don't need to know the results of that particular action. That's not going to, my guess is, because I'm not enlightened, I don't know, but my guess is it's not going to bring any particular, helpful result to me. So neutral karma means, this definition in English is karma, which is other than those two that give you desirable or undesirable karmic results. Neutral karma is karma other than those two, which give you desirable or undesirable karmic results. So there is another way that we can talk about virtue, and that is the the four kinds of virtue. So virtue can be divided into four kinds. And in this division, the first one is Dun Dampar Gewa. Say Dun Dampar Gewa. Dun Dampa or Dun Dam, sometimes you see, means ultimate. And Gewa, we know, is virtue. So the ultimate virtue, the ultimate good deed. So in the Abhidharma school, the ultimate good deed is tarpa, liberation, moksha in Sanskrit, nirvana. So this is not really a deed, right? Nirvana, freedom, that's a state of being. It's not an action. So nirvana or liberation is an ultimate virtue, takpawa, nominally, in name only. Technically not a deed, but we call it that. So that's the first kind of virtue. Here's the second kind of virtue. Ngo ni ki gewa. Say ngo ni ki gewa. Ngo means nature or essence. Ni means the very or itself. And ki here is by. So altogether, this is virtue by its very nature. You could call it natural good deeds. And there are 5 of those. So we're going to get into the 5 virtues that are virtues by nature. The first 3 of the 5 are gewe tsawatsum. Say gewe, tsawa, sum. So gewa, that's virtue. Tsawa means root. And sum means 3. So these are the 3 roots of virtue. These lists within lists within lists within lists. It's quite a Buddhist thing. So we're in the 4 types of virtue. We're in the second virtue. And that second virtue, which is things that are virtuous by nature, has 5 parts. And then the first of those, well, the first three of those five is three. They're talked about as three, the three roots of virtue. Here's the first one. It's called Duchak Mepa. Say Duchak Mepa. Duchak means desire. And Mepa is one of those words indicating a negation of some sort. And so this means non-desire. So the first root virtue is non-desire. Now, this non-desire, all these are all going to be mepa mepa. They're all mepa. They're all non-something. They're all put forward in the negative way. So the first being non-virtue. Well, what is our non-desire? Excuse me. What does non mean? It could mean simply having a lack of desire. It could mean that you have some other feeling or emotion that's not desire. It could be you're feeling good. You could be it could be that you're feeling content and not desiring anything. That could be your non-desire. Or it could be the active antidote for desire. What's the active antidote for desire? Is by understanding how it is that, let's say that your favorite thing is chocolate ice cream, and you really desire it. You want it. You think there's something in that ice cream that is really good. And that's why you want it, because if you move it from here to in here, then you'll be happy. And that's what causes your happiness, is whatever goodness there exists in this ice cream. So the three ways that you could have non-desire for the ice cream is that you simply, first of all, don't have desire for the ice cream. You just, I don't know, you just went for a run, and your body's all hyped up from the exercise, and the last thing you want to do is eat a bunch of ice cream. So you simply don't desire the ice cream. Or the next kind of non-desire for the ice cream could be that you just had not ice cream, but you just had a great piece of pie, and you're feeling very happy and content by having the piece of pie. So you don't have any desire for ice cream. But the third kind of non-desire for chocolate ice cream would be understanding that the pleasure that comes from eating ice cream doesn't come from the thing. There's no good taste that is inherent in ice cream that we're bringing from here to here. The happiness comes from here to here. That we're the ones who create good taste. Not good taste does not exist in the ice cream. And so with that understanding, there's non-desire. So that understanding of how it is that ice cream exists and I exist, and my relationship with ice cream how that exists, that it comes from me. That's the active antidote for desire. So actively not seeing this thing as having goodness or tastiness from its own side. So for all three of these, of the three roots of virtue, have this word non in it, and this word non has the flavor of, it could mean those three things, but when we talk about as a root of virtue, we're always talking about the last kind of non, the kind that understands how the thing exists. Okay, so that's non-desire. The second one is shedang mepa. I'm sorry, shedang mepa. Shedang mepa. And shedang means hatred. So this is non-hatred. So again, it's by understanding, why things that bring us pain come to us, why the rock on which I stub my toe brings me pain doesn't come from the rock. It comes from me having caused pain to someone else in the past. I planted that seed of non-virtue that ripened into an experience of pain. And so I'm not going to be angry at the rock. I'm not going to pick that rock up and toss it away like it's some sort of demon. I just understand, oh, okay, this is a ripening of an unpleasant experience due to something that I did in the past. So does that mean that we need to, this non-hatred, does that mean we have to enjoy when negative things happen to us? We don't have to enjoy them necessarily. Remember, this is just an understanding. This is not labeling as good or bad. This is just an understanding that what I experience comes from what I did in the past. So I don't have to be, Buddhism is not trying to teach me to be really happy whenever someone punches me in the nose, or whenever I get into a car accident. No, it's just this car accident came from me harming someone else in the past. It's just an intellectual understanding of the mechanism of how I create my experience of the world, how I create my world and my experience of it. So we know that when we experience something that brings us pain, we can think about, well, what might I have done to create this experience? And what can I do now and in the future to avoid having this kind of experience again? Right? And it works the same for non-desire. I really like chocolate ice cream. I'm not going to just sit here and eat the entire container of ice cream, because that's not where it comes from. No, ice cream comes from sharing things that bring happiness with other people. And so, yeah, I'll share the entire container of ice cream. Maybe I only get a little spoonful. That's okay, because I'm going to get lots more in the future. No, I'm going to, depending on how my motivation and how I dedicate it, I can make it as short-term pleasurable result or as long-term ultimate result as I want. That's up to me. And then the third one is Timuk Mepa. So we've got non-desire, we've got non-hatred, and now we have non-ignorance. Non-ignorance. So those are the first three of the 5 types of the second kind of virtuous karma. Now, for the next 2 of the 5 kinds of the second type, which is virtuous karma by nature, we have Ngotsa Shepa, say Ngotsa Shepa, and Trelye. Trelye. So these 2 are both mental functions, and these are mental functions that the Abhidharma says are present in the mind whenever we have a virtuous thought, or whenever we're doing something virtuous or saying something virtuous. They're always also present. The first one, Geshe Michael has translated as shame. And the second one is, he's translated as consideration. So this is, I mean, it is kind of interesting that this is associated with virtue, because usually when we think about being ashamed or being consideration, it's a little tricky, the second one, but basically these are each keeping yourself from doing a negative action. They're both related to that. The first one, shame, is you do it for yourself. Like you would be ashamed of yourself if you did this negative action. So regardless of whether anyone else is around or not, you have this shame about having to or doing some negative action. So you keep yourself from doing it. Consideration, Trelya, is the same thing about keeping yourself from doing a negative action, but here it's related to what other people may think about you. You know, if you're a parent, for example, you probably don't swear in front of your kids because you wouldn't want them to see you swearing. You might not yell at your partner in front of your kids because you wouldn't want your kids to see that. So you would protect yourself. Or if you did it from the Ngotsa Shepa state of mind, from the shame state of mind, you wouldn't swear, or you don't swear because you wouldn't want to, like, for example, be in the habit of swearing and then find yourself in a situation later where you're just swearing all the time and known as a person who swears all the time or something like that. So it's basically these two mental functions are very similar in keeping yourself from doing something negative, stopping yourself from doing something negative. And the first one, shame, is related to doing it for your own peace of mind, shall we say? And then the second one, chel yu, or consideration, is done for the peace of mind of others, so that you don't upset other people. So those are the 5 types of virtue that are virtuous by nature. And there's more we could say about that, but again, I'm running out of time, even though I tried really hard. Okay, let's at least finish the 4. The third type of virtue in this list is called Sungden Gewar Shakpa. Say Sungden. Sungden. Sungden means a mental link. So these are things that are, this means established as virtue, Gewar Shakpa. Things that are established as virtue because they have Sungden Gewa, they have a mental link with virtue. So if you are doing something really, really virtuous, let's say that you have set your motivation very high, very clearly. It's clear in your mind. You feel it in your heart. Your motivation is very pure and heartfelt, sincere. Then everything that comes along, everything that you do, like meditate or go to the store or go to a teaching, whatever you do then becomes virtuous by association, because those actions are mentally linked with the virtue of your motivation. And there are lists which we don't get into about what those kinds of things are that are mentally linked with virtue. But you can basically think about them as your awareness or your feelings. That those become virtuous by association. And then the 4th kind of virtue is Kunlong Gewa Gewa Shakpa. Say Kunlong. Kunlong. And this means motivation. So this is virtuous by motivation. So actually the example that I gave you before, that's more related to this one. Or maybe it's an example of something that fits into both kinds. I don't know. Because I'm not a Buddha and I can't see precisely. The story that's told about virtuous by motivation is one I've heard many times from many different teachers, so I have to share it with you. And that is the story of a person who's very, very, he's a poor person. He doesn't have much, but he has a lot of faith and devotion for the Buddha and the Buddhist teachings. And he's walking down a path, and it's raining out, and he comes upon this little Buddha statue off to the side of the path, and he thinks to himself, oh, the Buddha statue is getting rained on. It's going to get all wet and dirty. I need to protect it. And so he takes off his sandal and puts it over the statue. And his motivation is to protect the statue. So he continues on the path. And then someone comes up a little later on, someone who also has great devotion for the Buddha and the teachings of the Buddha. And this person sees, oh my gosh, there's a dirty shoe on top of that Buddha statue. Oh, I must take that. I must take that off. So they both have the same motivation. They did exactly opposite things, but they had the same motivation. And so they both created the same virtue. So the reading goes over some metaphors that are given for these 4 types of virtue. They're not on your homework, but I think it's a thing I can talk about in 2 minutes. I can't finish the class again. I'm so sorry. But so the metaphor for the first of the kinds of virtue, the ultimate virtue, is a healthy body. Ultimate virtue is like a good, healthy body. And virtue by nature is like a medicinal herb, some sort of medicine or cure. Virtue by association is like the liquid that you mix the herb with before you take it, so that the water becomes virtuous when you mix that medicine in it, right? It becomes beneficial. Doesn't become virtuous. It's a metaphor. It becomes beneficial because you have added this medicine to it. And then the last one, virtuous by motivation, they say is like a mother who has taken medicine, this medicinal herb, and then the milk she produces with her body is then flavored by that medicine. So that works in the opposite way as well. So ultimate evil, samsara, would be a sick body, and non-virtuous by association or by nature would be poisonous herbs, poisonous plants. Non-virtuous by association would be poison that's mixed in water when you take it. And then the last one, non-virtuous by motivation, would be like a mother who had consumed a poison and then the milk she produces is poisoned. Next time, I will start off with the end of this class. So again, you can't complete the homework unless you happen to know what the 10 non-virtues are. But we'll talk about them at the beginning of next class, and I apologize. So please quickly bring to mind, recall your motivation for taking this class and dedicate your participation, your being here, everything about your being here in the highest way possible. And we're already over time, so I won't read the prayers, but please, 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 please do dedicate yourself. And thank you, live translators. Thank you, tech team. Thank you, internet. Thank you, Zoom. Thank you, Geshe Michael. May we all reach our highest goals. And I'll see you in 2 days.